In this video, we will walk through mobile device management training with Entgra.
Let me quickly go ahead with the product architecture, a little bit of an idea. So when you take the product architecture, we have different kind of devices that can be connected to our product. So these can be mobile devices, and in the most recent versions, we have added the capability to manage laptops such as Windows 10 PCs and Mac OS devices as well. So how this whole thing works is there are APIs that makes all the functionality of the product available to the outside, and through these APIs our devices will be connected to our product, and there is something called the core of this product which we call as a device management core, and there are different plugins that gets plugged into this core. So when we add a new device type such as one of these PC platforms, what we do is develop one of these plugins which gets plugged into our framework. So it makes it easier for us to plug in new device types. So the product is known as an IoT server. So the idea here is that you can plug in any kind of a device. So when we take the mobile devices especially, these devices will communicate through some sort of a cloud messaging service. So our server will publish certain details to a cloud messaging service. For example, it could be Google or it could be Apple, but we are not transferring any corporate data. We are just sending a ping, and the device will receive that ping, and it will contact the server for the actual information. So the product mainly has a couple of different portals. So the main one is the device management portal, which you will be using to work with the devices. For example, to enroll a device, or add some operation to a device, or add some rule, which we call as policies to a device. So all those can be done with the device management portal. And there are another two portals. That is our app management side. When you want to manage an application or a web clip, a URL to a web page, you can publish those apps or URLs to something called the app publisher, and all those published applications will be available in the App Store to the users to browse and install on their devices. Also, after publishing, you can push these applications to the devices through the store application. So these are the internal portals that we have for admins to work with this server, and there are the external systems that this system gets connected to, but at this point I don't think we need to go into those details. So so as you might know, EMM is mainly mobile device management and mobile application management. So managing your mobile devices and managing your applications. So that's a quick overview of how the product architecture is like. So we can manage Android devices, iOS devices. So when we take Android, we can manage BYOD devices or corporate devices that you provide to your employees. So there are different enrollment types. For example, there can be dedicated devices for your corporate purposes, or your work devices can be there. So depending on how we enroll with our system, certain functionalities that are available will be limited. Um, so that's what is shown in this diagram mainly. Um, so if we go past that, um, for Android, that is basically how it works, and even for Apple, we have BYOD and COPE kind of enrollments, depending on again those enrollment types, how you enroll with our system. Um, what we can do on those devices will be different. So, for example, we can't do everything on a device that is owned by an employee, which will violate their privacy as well. So, because of that, depending on the enrollment type, there are different features or things that can be done on these devices. So, I mentioned about the application management side. So we do have a portal called the App Store, where you can browse applications, and also something called the App Publisher, where developers or admins can go and publish certain applications that will be used by your organization. So when we are publishing, there is a certain life cycle that the application goes through. Uh, for example, when you just create an application, it will be in created state, and it will go on through different states. So I will explain those states as we go on. Another important thing, especially for when you are working with integrations, is we have something called this API store. So all the features of this product is available as both protected APIs, and you can actually browse through these APIs in an API store. So you can see what are the APIs, and you can see what are like the payloads and how you can invoke these APIs. So all of this is available through this API store application. So that's again another portal. So that's like quick overview of some of the portals and the high level architecture of the product. So if anyone has questions, I can answer, or if not, I can move to the next phase.
Well, that sounds good. I think going into the product demo will be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what we'll do is we'll provide you with a separate tenant in our cloud. So our cloud server instance that we have created, it will host, it will have many different tenants, and all these tenants are separated out, as in what is in one tenant cannot be viewed by another tenant. So there is an isolation between all these tenants. So uh, how when we log into a tenant, how we identify that tenant is there will be an admin account to each tenant. So what we will do is for you, we will create one tenant and give you. And if you are enrolling another country and you need another separate space, we can create another tenant for that country and give you. So in this case, I will show you how this works in the main tenant that we have. So there'll be a username, and like there'll be some domain associated with this. So for this, we can say I will use the main tenant, which is called carbon.super. So once you log in, so this is basically our management portal, which we talked about earlier. In this management portal, you can see what are the devices that we have in the platform. These are the devices that are enrolled with the server, and Also, if you need to create certain groups, like if you want to group a set of users based on a geographical area or some condition, uh, some uh, uh, some condition, basically you can group those into a group. And if you want to add a new user, you will have to create users, and you will also need to manage users. So those can be done with the user management area. And again, we have things called policies. So policies are like rules that you apply on these devices. So I will explain a little bit further when we go into that area. So basically, what policies are, they are rules that the device must adhere to at all times. And there are roles. So these are user roles. So you can create different roles in your organization and give different level of permission to these roles. So that is something that you can do depending on your requirement. So so these are device types. We will not be using. This will not be something useful in your use case. So these are basically new device types that you can add to the product. For example, if you're adding a new kind of a device type, we have the ability to basically define that through the UI. That will be useful for IoT kind of scenarios. So let me first show you how some of these things work. For example, we can create a role. So let's say you are creating a role called sales. Uh, you can define who are the users that will be in this role, and can basically add that role. And when you're adding that rule, you can basically define what are the permissions that you can give to each of these to this rule. So so all these permissions, what they do and what they are defined in our documentation. You can refer to those. So so you can see a whole lot of permissions that you can apply. Uh, so basically, what this means is, if you are using our product through APIs, we can control who can view something, who can add something, who can delete, who can do various things. So the API access will be limited based on what we tick here. So that's what this means. So let me go ahead and create this role. Right. So you can see what are the roles that are available here. And in this, you can see things like if you want to edit that role, or you want to edit permissions, you can do through the UI. Okay. So that's about roles. So basically, you can define what you can uh, do with different user roles, and you can define different user roles and assign them with users. So for example, a manager would require a certain set of permissions, and another user will not require those permissions. So depending on your use case, you can pick and choose what are the permissions that you would need. So once you create a role, another thing you might want to do is you might want to create some users in your organization, so that you can give access to these users. So you can basically create a user. Um, and you can select what kind of role you want to assign to this user. So so after that, you can just add this user to the system. So once that is done, our new user, which I named as test1, is added to our user management system. And if you want to edit any of these users parameters like his name and all those details that we just created, you can edit that. And one important thing would be like if the user forgets their password or something like that, and you want to reset that password as the admin, you can reset the password here. Uh, right. So you can basically do that as well, and reset the password of the user. And so in this portal, you can in this area of the portal, you can do your basic user management. That'll be useful when you're managing your organization. Okay. Um, so other than that, what will be most useful is how to add a new device into your system. So this is done through this device management area. So if I just view the devices that I have, there are certain devices that I have enrolled, and if you choose, so you can basically filter out using this top bar different like the different types, or rather different different statuses of these devices. So devices can be in different states, like if you just enroll, it might be in created state, that is if it hasn't communicated, and if it has communicated recently, it will be in active state. And if a device hasn't communicated with the server in a long time, it will go into inactive state, and after a certain period of time, it will be marked as unreachable. Uh, Also, like when it is removed, it will be in a removed state. So you can basically pick the platforms or ownership types. Based on that, you can sort the devices. So when you want to enroll a new device, one thing you can do is you can click on this enrollment button here, or through the main portal also you can go to add a new device. Um, so what will happen here is you can once you select the device, you can select what kind of enrollment, what kind of a device type that you want to enroll. So let's take Android, for example. So so you can let the user either download the APK file and install it, or you can scan. You can give the QR code so that the user can scan this QR code in order to download the agent. So that's what I have done in my phone. So it basically I have scanned this QR code and installed our agent application into the phone. So let me share my screen so that share my phone screen.
And while you're doing that, I just wanted to also mention that this is, so these won't be the actual caseworkers and case managers installing the agent to the device. This will be done by by Andrea and Samir on the call. So they'll be managing the devices and installing the not only the Android agent to the phone, but also the Primero application to the phone.
Okay. All right, understood. So, so they will be basically installing these applications and enrolling with the system.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
Jan.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, Kim.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the ongoing training. It's very interesting. Uh, uh, I don't know if you guys can give me time to excuse myself from the ongoing training, and you guys can go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Uh,
We're recording this.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I can watch from the recording. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Pass my regards to the rest. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
So what I have done here is I have scanned this QR code and just installed this application onto my phone. So you can see our agent application. So in this, what we need to do is basically we can go ahead and start our enrollment flow. So I mentioned there are different kinds of enrollment flows that are available. So you can create work profiles, or you can create regular enrollments. So it can be any of these types. Also, there are other types of enrollment. So for example, if you go down here, you can see something called, there's another QR code. That is, if you are trying to create like a kiosk kind of a device locked onto a single application. So that's different. So let me show you like a basic enrollment of how we can enroll with the system. So you will have to type the username and password to enroll with the system. And in this case, I create my tenant name is Carbon Super. So you will have your own tenant name for this. So once I sign in, it will show certain policy agreement, and that policy agreement can be customized from the UI. I will show that part as well. So there'll be certain things that will pop up. Basically, type certain pin code and things like that. So after that is done, the agent will be enrolled with the system. So so once this is enrolled, if we go into the device management section and if we see what are the active devices, you can see my newly enrolled device is available, and you can see what are the operations that are getting added into this device. Some other things are like you can see the device's state here, as in like its memory, CPU, and battery, and those things. And there are certain operations that you can do on this device, like you can send a message, or you can like ring this device, or you can basically transfer files with this device if you want. So those kind of things can be done on this device. So once a certain thing, once a certain operation is triggered, it will be available or visible in this operation log. Whatever you added will be shown here. So you can see my message is appeared in the notification area. All right. So so that's how you can trigger certain operation. So that's basically how things happen. And you will note there are certain operations that gets added automatically as well. For example, this device information and location information related things will be added automatically by the system. And there is something called monitor. So this monitor operation is something that is added by the system because there are policies, there is a policy that I have defined for this device. So the monitor operation, what it does is it will periodically, time to time, it will check if the device is adhering to the policy or not. So other than that, you can do things like you can see the location, or you can see what are the applications that are installed, and if the device is adhering to the policy or not. And if you want to get like the device's logs for some reason, you can do that with a remote connection. Yeah, so basically you have access to the shell, or if you want to get logs from the system, you can do that. And with the user's permission, you can even do something like a screen share with the device if you want that sort of a thing. So that's something you can do if your user is facing some issue, and if you want to remotely troubleshoot it, that's possible. All right. So this is basically how you can interact with a device, and you can add operations and view the device's running status, and you can monitor that device. So this is where you can do all of that. So another area that you will be interested in will be policy management. Sorry, session has expired. Okay, so if I go into policy, I can define different types of policies, and you can see I have already defined a policy, and this is the policy that got applied to that device earlier. So you can do different things when it comes to policies. So there are things like passcode policies that you can apply to a device. So what this means is you can define what kind of a policy or what kind of a passcode that the user must have on their device. So you can define the length of the passcode, the maximum characters that must be there, and whole other things like how often they can reuse the same passcode, and maximum days that they can use the same passcode, and things like that can be enforced. And if there are other restrictions that you want to enforce, those are also possible. But then again, certain restrictions are available for certain kind of enrollments. So I can allow or disable the camera, and there are a whole lot of things that you can do as when we consider restrictions that are available in the system. So depending on your use case, you can use these restrictions. And another thing is you can enforce the user to use encryption in this device. And also if you want to define certain Wi-Fi policy, or you want to define certain type of Wi-Fi configuration, you can define that as well. There are so many other policies. So let me briefly explain all of this. So what global proxy setting means is if you want to configure a proxy server and you want your devices to be routed through that proxy server. VPNs are like if you want to. So currently we support like open VPN connections where you can define a VPN server, and the device will be connected to that VPN server, and those configurations will be delivered by the MDM when your user is enrolling. There are other things like work profile configurations. If you are using work profiles, where you can hide or enable or disable certain kind of applications. COSU is actually, it's something for kiosks, so I will not go into that. And application restrictions are again, you can blacklist or whitelist a certain set of applications, and you can define what are the applications that must not be available on the user's device, or that must be available, or the applications that should be available in the user's device. So so that's one. And when it comes to like enrollment application installation, you can define what are the apps that must be installed at the time of the enrollment. So when a device is enrolled with the system, those apps will be automatically installed at the time of enrollment. So once you do that, you can continue, and in this UI, you can, once we have created our policy, what you can do is you can associate that policy with a user or a user role. So we have created a new role, so we can associate our policy with that role. So when a user in that role enrolls, this policy will be applied. So so the same way we can define even for different groups. So this is basically a filter of where you want to apply, or how to what category you want to apply this policy. So it can even be like individual to individual users. Right. So let me continue. So so you can save and publish this policy. So once that is done, you will see that this is in active or updated state. But this will not. This is still, this policy is still not applied to the devices. So in order to apply that policy to a device, what you have to do is you have to press this apply changes to device button, and it will apply the changes, whatever the changes you have made here, to the devices. Why we have it like this is because there can be multiple policies that you edit, and you only want to execute it at once. So you can do multiple edits, and at the end you can click that button and enroll, push that policy to the device. Okay. So there is also something called the policy priority. So if we go into this, you can see there are there is a policy priority defined here. So what this means is, so there can be policies applied to the same user, and there needs to be a mechanism to define what policy will be applied to like which user. So basically what it means here is you can define the priority that a policy will be applied. So if there is a user that is in two different roles, based on the priority of the policy, that the correct policy will be selected for the user. Hope up to now everything is clear.
Yeah, I think it's clear. I just also wanted to know, this is really great. Thanks for doing this, and it's really thorough, but I just was wondering, do we have any user guides as well to accompany this recording, just so we can share it with Andrea and Samir and anybody else who's a part of the team that are going to be administering?
So it's like this. So we have certain user guides onto like how you can enroll with the system, and what are the, like, everything in the product and in depth it has been documented, but certain parts might not be available in the level that that like a operational level user might understand. But what we can do is we can clarify any of those problems. But all the features and things that are available in the product are documented.
Mm-hmm.
We can provide the documentation that we have available with you, and if something is not clear, I guess we can clarify those for you.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, technical question.
Yeah.
How to make recognize between device and the core system? It's through the username we create, like you create it and you have to add the username on that application on mobile or on tablet.
Yeah. So with the username, you can basically identify what kind of a device that is available. So for example, in this case, I enroll for test user. So
Yes.
you can see the test user's device here. So through that, you can identify. So another thing that you can do is if you want to give a specific name to this device, you can rename this device to let's say like that. You can basically rename the device to something that you can internally correlate and you can map. So that can be done to identify devices if that is something useful for you.
Okay, so next step from tablet, from mobile device, we need to find the application as you mentioned it through App Store or Play Store, yeah. And then we will have the username. Then we will add the username. Then the device will be controlled or managed by the core system.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Okay. So that is basically how all of this works. And if I go into configuration section, so I think what you will be interested here only will be this platform configuration. So when it comes to, so you don't actually need to modify any of the parameters here. The only thing that you might need to modify is this license text. You can add your own license text here, so that when the device is enrolling, you might remember seeing in license text. This is the license text that was shown there. So that you can modify it so that you can display your own license text if that's something you need. So the same goes for iOS as well. All right. So we have covered mainly all the functionalities in the device management portal. So let me go into the publisher and the store portal that we discussed earlier in the slide deck.
I just wanted to say I don't know if we need to go into publisher,
Okay.
just because I don't think there will be any other applications that will be publishing through the publisher, and just for this pilot at least.
Okay.
I was just wondering, for maybe Samir and Andrea, the phones that we're procuring for, is it only being used for Primero, or will they be using it for other applications?
To be honest, Mohan knows. Mohan asked me to participate in this training. I think this is for CPIMS.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the only thing we are using here in Iraq, in the whole area.
Okay.
So I don't know more.
And Andrea, with Warchild, will they be using the phones for any other applications, or is it just going to be for CPIMS Plus?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So the caseworkers have tablets assigned to each of them that they will only be using for CPIMS plus purposes.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so we don't need to go into detail on the other parts of this Enosh.
Okay, okay, understood. So, so the Premiere app will be the only app that will be installed on these devices.
Correct, and the only one really being managed using this MDM solution.
Okay, understood, understood. All right.
But then also to follow up on what John had said before, if it would be possible to have by written, very simplified instructions, not having to go to this level of technical detail on where do you install, how do you install, in case we need to be able to share it across project officers or CP officers and other bases. Like I will try to have them installed myself evidently, but having like a very simplified document with instructions would be very helpful.
Understood, understood. So,
thank you.
Yeah, sure. So we'll get back to you on that on what we can do. So it will be useful for us as well. I mean, other than what we have discussed earlier, like if you have a certain so one thing that I can think of is how to enroll a device with the system. So that will be useful for you. Is there any specific policies or use cases that you are trying to achieve so that we can document those specifically for you?
Not that I can think of at the moment, but if we could have at least, I mean, I guess during Mohan, a feedback loop on whether we see that some things are necessary as we implement and we test how it goes.
Yeah.
And then from just like the developer side, realistically, if people are having issues with the Primero application, for example, to be able to, you know, screen share and remotely be able to understand what are the different issues that may be happening within the mobile app, that would be useful.
Okay, understood. So, so I guess, so Jan, is there anything else that you want me to discuss in the presentation?
I think this is a good start. I also have to be mindful of time because I have to jump off in a couple of minutes here. I'm just wondering as next steps, just even walking through like how you were going through the roles and the groups. Samir and Andrea, what we can do is I can work with Mohan and set up all of the different things. So then the only thing that you guys need to really work on is installing it onto the devices and then putting in like labeling the devices and then distributing them to the staff members, if that works for you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
So sorry, Samir.
Sorry, John. So the instructions will come from you to Mohan, and Mohan will share with us what necessary need to be done from our side. So we have we inform it here from management side, from admin side. We will not touch it, and we will not have access from our end, right?
Well, no. Sorry, I'll just set it up, but you will have access. So you will have administrator rights. So you'll still be able to add any devices and manage those devices. But I was just more thinking about setting up the roles and the groups just to make it easier.
It will be great.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So so I and so I just was wondering, so in terms of like sharing, like following this call, Enosh, you will send us like the domain, the URL, the admin login, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I will create a new tenant. If you have any preference on to the domain name of the tenant, I can use that as well.
I will send. I can send you one.
Yeah. So I will send all the credentials and how to log into the system and all of that details, along with some of the documentations that we already have. And whatever issues that you face, we can work through those with our support portal. Yeah, that's about it.
Sounds good. Andreas,
All right.
do you have anything else?
It was perfect. Thank you.
All good on my side. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Inosh, and thank you guys for joining. I'll send all of this information after this call, and once I follow up with Inosh, hopefully to get it to you by either the end of the day, my day, or tomorrow at some point.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Inosh.
No problem. Bye.